Welcome to this week's Dragonblade Authors Unplugged chat. I'm so excited. I have Dragonblade author Jillian Eaton and USA Today bestsellers Mary Lancaster and Alexa Aston with us today. I'm so excited to talk to you ladies. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
Of course. Happy to be here.
Great. Well, Jillian, can we start with your book since it came out first this week? It's Wooed by the Wallflower, book 4 in Perks of Being an Heiress series. And one of the other Dragonblade authors was posting in the group yesterday, and she said, "You had me at the squirrel," and you also had me at the squirrel. So, could you tell us a little bit about your book, and then also please about the squirrel?
So there is Rosemary, who's the heroine. There's Sterling, who is the hero, and then there's Sir Reginald, who is the squirrel. And those are basically the three main characters of, not really, but of the book. So it is, like you said, it's the 4th book in Perks of Being an Heiress. I do write all my books as standalone. So even if you hadn't read the first 3, you could pick this one up and read it, and you would figure out who everyone is within the first couple chapters. But it's basically the first 2 books are about 2 sisters, 2 American sisters who come to England. And in the very first book, they find out they have a English cousin that they never knew about, Rosemary. And this is finally her book. So she was introduced in book 1, and she had to wait through book 1, 2, and 3. And then she gets this book. And Sterling, the hero, who is a duke, naturally, my only duke of this whole series. So I saved him for last, but he's also introduced in book 1 kind of as that hero's roguish, drunkish, ne'er-do-well friend. So, and Rosemary's kind of the quiet, meek wallflower with a pet squirrel. So they're definitely not who you think would end up together, but they do. And the book is kind of about both of them. They both have to go through some changes, and they bring out, it's genuinely a book where they bring out the best in each other as it unfolds. And it's good. It's funny. There's a lot of funny parts that I've been getting really good feedback. I love it when I chuckle to myself as I'm writing it, but I'm like, I don't know if like this is actually funny. And I tell my husband, and he doesn't read romance. So he's like, oh yeah, that's good. That's good. But then when I get feedback from readers who are like, oh, I love that part where like the squirrel went up the tree or this happened, or that's probably one of my favorite feedbacks, when like the humor connects. So there's a lot of romance. There's quite a bit of steam in this book, but there's a lot of humor, which is good because Sterling has a very dark backstory. So I kind of needed that lightness to temper that in. And then throughout the book, I did have a lot of fun bringing back the 3 previous couples. Each of them, you find out where they are, how they're doing, and that was a lot of fun as well. So I'm really happy with how it concluded the series.
I meant to write down the last line in the blurb for this one because the stakes are so good. It's like when they're about to be happy, something from their past comes back, and then I don't have the exact wording, but in my head when I read it, it was like it's so clear. The stakes were so perfect that they're going to have to choose.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not really a spoiler because it's revealed within the first 2 chapters of the very first book of the series, Bewitched by the Blue Stocking. The hero in that book is a detective, and Sterling comes to him and says, my mistress has disappeared and her room is covered in blood and everyone thinks I killed her. So I'm going to need you to help me with that. So right from the beginning of the whole series, he's kind of set up as this anti-hero, which I don't generally write a lot of because I have trouble kind of finding that redemption arc. But with him, I did, and it worked out really well. So yes, definitely high stakes. And it really, he and Rosemary get to a place where they think that they're happy, and then something big happens and they really have to see if they can bounce back from that.
Yeah. I loved the setup for that. It was just the perfect, this is why we're doing this kind of thing.
Thank you.
So back to the squirrel.
Yes.
So he's based on your pet squirrel, is that right?
I did
Or you
have
had a pet squirrel?
I did have a pet squirrel, which I don't think technically you're supposed to have, but it was like a number of years ago. So I think like the statute of limitations has run out. Before I was a full-time author, I was a barn manager, and I lived in an old farmhouse at the horse farm that I managed. And come spring, like baby squirrels would just come dropping out of trees like leaves. And most of them we would get back in, or we would leave alone and the parents would come down. But this was after a big storm, and it was the only one I found, and I left it there, and the mom just never came back to get it. And I couldn't find the nest. So I brought it into the house and Googled how to keep a baby squirrel alive. And I did, and I named her Baby Clementine, and she was so much fun. I have some pictures up of her on the Dragonblade readers group. I can post a couple more. And yeah, it was a fun experience. I had her, I think, for about 2 or 3 months. She would like sit on my shoulder when I would teach riding lessons. And then I was like, I can't have like a full-grown squirrel. I can't keep her in a cage. That wouldn't be fair. So I kind of, during the day, I would let her out loose in the backyard, and she'd like go up in a tree and she'd be gone for a couple hours. And then I would come back and she'd see me and she'd run down and jump on my shoulder. And then she started coming down like every other time. And then I'd see her like once every 3 days, and I'd see her like once a week. And then I just didn't see her anymore. So I think that's good. I think she kind of went off to live her best squirrel life. But yeah, so I definitely, Sir Reginald the squirrel he's very realistic squirrel, because I had a lot of firsthand experience to draw from.
Landbound pirate.
That is so cool. They say write what you know, but I never would have thought about writing a squirrel.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. He worked his way in.
Cool. Well, Mary, your book is the next book that released this week, and it is also the 4th book in the Pleasure Garden series, and Masking the Duke. The covers for these are so gorgeous.
I know, aren't they?
Can you tell us a little bit about your book?
Yeah, it's about a Duke too. So,
well, we're partial to them, you know.
Yes, they do seem to do well. People like Dukes. So he's one, but his heroine is not a well-born lady. She's actually the niece of the slightly dodgy character who owns the pleasure garden. And the Duke comes looking around there because he wants to find out. He's looking to right a wrong that was done to a distant cousin of his, who is now dead, but he knows her daughter. She had a daughter, so he's looking for the daughter. And it's led him to the pleasure garden, and he thinks it might be Kitty. So the story is really about how they already know each other, because in fact they met some time ago in the first Pleasure Garden book. She was just serving them all drinks, and he was there helping the main characters. And but he was, in fact, in the previous series, in the Season of Scandal series, in the last book of that, he turned up first time as the sort of slightly scandalous brother of the heroine. And a lot of readers wrote to me and said, was he going to have his own story because they liked him so much? And I kind of liked him too, so I was quite happy to do that. So I thought, I'm going to bung him in here. So he was a handy Duke. He's a Duke now rather than just a Duke's heir. So he's inherited the title, and it's made him grow up a little bit. So
and then he earns its own story as well.
Yes.
So it's a mistaken identity, is that right? That he thinks that she might be the relation that he's looking for. Did I have that?
Well, I'm not going to reveal whether or not she is who he's looking for. It might spoil the story a bit. but they are obviously destined for each other, one way or another.
Wonderful. I still have trouble imagining that there were actually pleasure gardens, because it seems like such a the Regency period seems like such a prescribed, way of acting in the world, that the idea that there would be these little pockets of things that in my head feel very wild and.
Well, I think they were, especially at night. But I mean, they'd been a hangover from the previous century. In fact, possibly even from the one before. can't quite remember now, but certainly they were at their sort of zenith in the 18th century when things were a little bit wilder. But because they were so public, you couldn't keep people out. So there was sort of high crime as well as lots of scandal and so on went on there. So you had to have your own very private party within it. And they were very passé by the Regency era, really. So it was only the vulgar who went there. So my characters are really sort of bucking the trend. They go for nefarious reasons because they want to be masked or behave outrageously in some way and not have any comeback over it.
Yeah, I love that idea of living outside of your normal.
Yeah, but I think it is fun because it's very difficult otherwise to write a believable Regency where the characters don't get sort of completely clobbered and isolated from society if they behave any differently. So it's nice to have a little outlet where they can go and let the hair down and be a wee bit naughty.
Just a little bit, though, not too much.
Oh, no. None of that. Much.
Oh, wonderful. And I love when we get to see characters, especially cross series, but from book to book too, where you have somebody that you have a chance to get attached to and then you get to see them again. I love when series do that. So, especially when it's reader driven.
Yeah.
Awesome. Alexa, your book was the last book to come out this week, and it is the first book in a new series for you. It's Educated by the Earl and the first book in the Second Sons of London.
Yes, it's going to be out on Friday. And I haven't put anything out since November, so I'm excited to get this into readers' hands. It will have 2 dukes, 2 marquises, 2 earls, and a viscount. So these are the 7.
You get all the titles.
Yeah, covering the whole scope and everything. I mean, I love a duke as much as everyone else, but you can have a hot viscount too. These are second sons, so obviously first sons are meant to inherit, and second sons went off to war. And because of various circumstances, I've got some deaths, I've got a scandalous murder, that these men wind up coming home from the war, and of course they're inheriting a title which they weren't expected to ever have. And they find their soulmates, of course. It started out as a trilogy, interestingly enough. I came up with 3 cousins first. And so it was going to be these 3 girls, and they were going to find their second sons. But I'm like Jillian, my books are all standalones, but sometimes you introduce this character and the hero's friend, and then the heroine's cousin, and then, all these people. And it grew and it grew, and all of a sudden it was 7 books long. So as in most of my books, you'll see, different couples that we've already seen their HEA. They'll interact and kind of sometimes help push together some of the other couples. I've got a pair of twins. 2 of the heroines are twins, and one is very shy and one is super outgoing and very fiercely protective of her quiet twin. And interestingly enough, that yin and yang, the outgoing one goes for probably the shyest hero I've ever written in my life. You think he would be, for the shy heroine, and nope, doesn't work that way. I even throw in a governess or 2 in there. So you're going to get the whole gambit in this series.
You get everybody. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, I love the setup for it because I was putting it in the Dragonblade store, and the idea that first sons inherit it all, and second sons usually go into the military unless love has other plans for them, and it's just like it's a really lovely setup for a series. So
yeah, I love alliteration. So second sons, that's literally the first thing that came to me. The second sons, and then the 3 girl cousins, and then, like I said, the whole gang decided to show up. All the voices, talking in your head, and give me a story, that kind of thing. So
we were talking a little bit before we started recording about how you write. And I know we've talked before, but about plotting and the way you write. But one of the things that you were saying is that you like to dictate when you walk. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and about how you like?
I do that, and I have become so much more productive since I have started that. I
know
like
that part.
Some programs. I know Dragon Dictation is one, and I tried it once, and it's one of those, if you talk it out, they start learning more of your accent, my little Texas drawl that I have and everything. But I don't know, I wasn't fond of the program, and I'm just using something that came with my iPhone. It's called Voice Recorder. And so when I used to walk, I would kind of plot things out and run some dialogue in my head. And by the time I got home and showered and went to the grocery store and then finally sat down a couple of hours later, I couldn't capture all of the magic that had been running in my head when I walked. And so I thought, why not just talk it out while I walk? And so that's what I do. I pull the phone out and, chapter this, and I just start going. And I've thought about it before. I walked, when I have insomnia the night before and I'm not sleeping, it's like, oh, this, and this can happen. So I walk about an hour in the mornings, and usually I can dictate an entire chapter during that hour. And then I come home, and then it's already captured. And yes, I do have to transcribe it, but that's when I'm able to tweak it, and then I can move on. And so I have become a lot more productive. Last year, I started doing this, and I put out 2 series, Regency series, and they were 5 books each. And I put out 2 novellas, one in the Dragonblade Halloween collection and one at the Christmas one. So I have found that, I've read where walking and movement stimulates creativity. And I have found that to be true. So I would recommend it.
I used to have a tread desk, and I really liked that. I liked standing, and having a standing desk and walking. It was hard to write doing that, but it was wonderful for edits.
Yeah.
Because you had something to do with your feet while your brain was moving.
Exactly.
But
after I do my walking, all these people sit at desk, and I'm sitting at a desk now. I never sit at a desk unless, I'm doing something like this or a little bookkeeping. Over in the corner of my office there, I have a lazy boy rocker, and I kick that puppy up and put the laptop in my lap, and that's how I write.
Good for you.
So do you use a microphone when you're recording, or are you just recording into the phone?
It's an app on the phone, and it records, and it will. I don't know. I think the most I've talked is an hour and 10 minutes and all. But usually about 45 minutes is good enough for me. And then once I get it transcribed, then I can maybe fill in some descriptions or research, because sometimes that stops me. And if I'm at home writing, it's like I stop and then I go down that rabbit hole of something. But if I'm out, I'm like, okay, blah, 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 research this about the horse. And then I just keep going and everything. So then when I get home, then I can fill in those blanks, which that's nice. It really is. But like I said, I'm excited about the series. Spencer and Tessa are the first 2 that are up. She's cared for some very sick parents. And so she's ready to go kick up her heels in society. One of her cousins is a matchmaker. So she's hoping, Adeline, she'll definitely hook me up with someone. And Spencer, coming home from war, he doesn't really want to have anything to do with polite society. He's your army major, rough and tough kind of thing. So he's going to do his duty, find the wife and have the heirs. And he's not going to go to all of this stuff. And they wind up finding each other on a very early morning walk. She's attacked, and he goes to her rescue, and she winds up attacking him and sticking up for the attacker. And so he's just like, he had wanted this, very, young, pliable girl to, be his countess. And then he'd just, move on. And he finds out he likes a woman with a little bit of spirit. And so he has to woo her and convince her, I am the one.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, those are the best ones.
Yeah.
I love a reluctant heroine and an eager hero. Those are my favorites.
Well, and I find too that more and more often I'm writing a hero that falls in love first, and that has to convince this heroine and persuade her, and they're a little more stubborn and, stand back or I want to do my kind of thing. One of the girls in the series is a widow, and, the typical first marriage, which was very, very unhappy. And so she's ready to have some fun now and enjoy her widowhood. And so I've got a reformed rake who's now taken on this heavy mantle, of having the title. And he's got to convince her, so, but they have fun between the sheets. It's okay.
Well, and it's like when you can see the heroine has things to give up. It's like she has some agency on her own. Then the idea of taking on a husband is like, well, maybe,
I like giving women some power, because a lot of them did not have that power.
Yeah.
you know, and widows did, you know, widows could own property and, you know, make some legal decisions and all. And you really would have to love someone to let go of any kind of legal rights that you had. So.
And I think as readers, I think we love reading strong heroines too. I think you know, we love being able to empathize with strong heroines regardless of the time period. So
yeah, because I mean, all of us in real life, you know, I think we want to be these strong heroines and, you know, have all these great comebacks. And of course, I'm the person that has to come back at 2 a.m. when I have the insomnia and man, I should have said that kind of thing. But on the written page, you know, boy, that woman, you know, she can say what she wants and just score.
that's why texting is so great, because you have a minute to pause before
Yes. Yes.
you think you right through it before you respond. So, Jillian, I know that you are writing with littles around you.
Yes.
Have you found-
They are at school now. Today's their long day, which is why I suggested Wednesday. I have like a two days during the week. I have like a 4-hour window. But yeah, I have a 5-year-old and then I have 3-year-old twins, all boys, all loud, rambunctious boys who just discovered Pokemon, which their brother brought home from his pre-K class. So now they're all like, the one will only be referred to as Pikachu. And I don't know anything about Pokemon. I just know, like, I watched the movie with Ryan Reynolds in it. Like, that's the extent of my Pokemon knowledge. But yes, one is now permanently Pikachu, and they just run around the house and attack each other. Like they all get up at 5 a.m. I used to get up early. I'd set my alarm for like 5:30, and from 5:30 to 6:30 I would write and it'd be quiet. And now they get up at 5 and I was like, I can't get up earlier than that. I can't do it. But yeah, so when they're in school is when I try to write, even when we'll have like a sitter come over. We have a really nice girl just out of high school, and she'll watch them while they're here, but they're so loud. And I've always been someone, I know people listen to music or like I have to have it quiet when I write. Like I used to be able to go out to a cafe or something. I can't even really do that now. Like I have to be in my office with my coffee and have it quiet. So I definitely have to work my writing schedule around the three of them.
Remember those days.
I just when I read your post earlier this week, you were posting about the boys at soccer. I thought, I remember exactly what that was like.
Yeah. It was a tough mom day, but I think it's important to talk about those, just like with writing, to talk about sometimes you have just like a tough writing day that a lot of people don't really discuss, which I think can be a little bit discouraging sometimes to people who are just starting out or people who have been in it even for a while. With both writing and motherhood kind of have those two things in common. It's so easy to say it's so easy all the time, but in reality it is not. So at soccer practice, I had the twins were on the floor screaming at the top of their lungs, and all the other kids in the class are like perfectly behaved. And I'm like, you get out there right now. I'm like threatening them. It was the worst. But we regrouped, and last night we had soccer again. We went back, and it went a lot better. So
I remember those mornings laying in bed and thinking to myself, I'm not going to yell today. I'm not, and I have 3 boys too, much older. My oldest is 22.
okay.
I'm not going to yell today. I'm not going to yell today. And then I get to the end of the day, it's like, well, that didn't work.
I know. Like I will I'm like, I'm not yelling.
I will not be the fishwife today, but I was.
Yeah, I will say, since becoming a mom, I've definitely not in this series, but I'm doing a Halloween. I'm taking part of the Halloween anthology for Dragonblade for the first time. I'm so excited, and the heroine is going to have a young child this time, which I'm definitely going to be drawing from, like with the squirrel, but now a baby, drawing from in real life, which is an aspect of my writing that just wasn't there before, because I didn't want to make it up. It was, one of those things that I want to draw from real life. So
write what you know is a reason, like it's there for a reason.
Yeah.
You have a sense of empathy that you don't have otherwise.
Yeah.
It was interesting when you said about writing and motherhood being the same, and the importance of about talking about hard days. I'm wondering if any of you, especially Mary and Alexa, because you've been writing longer, that whole idea of imposter syndrome, because you look at the kids that are behaving and the mothers, and you're like, well, they know what they're doing. And I think the same thing is true as writers. It feels like with every book that comes out, there's the thought that's like, well, this is the one where they're going to figure out I don't really know what I'm doing.
Yes.
Like, do you ever have those feelings? And Mary, do you have a like, how do you deal with that kind of the solitariness of being a writer and figuring out how to?
I don't know, actually. I've just always seemed to have done it. I suppose I'm always terrified until somebody actually reads the book and says that they like it. Otherwise, I'm always convinced that it's no good, because I think because you're so pernickety yourself, and you go through and you keep trying to change it, and then it gets to the stage where you think, I'm actually making this worse. Leave it alone. So in desperation, you send it off to your editor and go away, be done. And I don't think about it anymore. And then I live in terror of all the all the changes and the edits and the general awfulness that I'll have to rewrite the whole thing. But I don't think that's actually ever happened. I've had to do a complete rewrite. So I suppose I'm not quite as fearful now, but it's still there at the back of my mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and too, I suppose. Yeah, but that's
all the things that were different before it gets to the end too. I think as the author, all the permutations it's gone through to get to the point where it is, and it kind of stays with you the whole time.
Yes, yeah, I think so. Yeah.
What goes out to the reader is a different experience than the one that you've had when you were writing it.
Hopefully.
Alexa, have you got any of that?
I still feel like a newbie. I mean, I've got a whole shelf behind me here of all of these books that I've written, and yet I still feel every time going into it, the nail biting, and will people like this book, and will it do well, or will it not, or and just, I don't know. I don't know if you ever, I guess it's always, it's a different level. The first level is, oh, will I get published? Okay, then you get published. Well, is people going to read the book? Yes. Will people read the book? Well, how's my rank? Well, last time the rank was this, and you want to to have a better rank and be exposed to more readers. And it is terrifying putting that new couple out into the world, putting a new series out into the world.
Yes. Will they follow me? Like
exactly.
The readers who love the previous characters come and love these characters as well. And
Yes, especially when they've taken to someone. My last series really proved to be my most popular, and the last hero in that book, I mean, I kept having readers say, I can't wait for Finch's book. I can't wait for Finch's book. And I saved him for last for a reason, but then they were saying that from book 1, and he was book 5. And the closer we got to book 5's release, it was just like, oh my gosh, what if they don't like
they're waiting for this?
What if they don't like what I did? What if they don't like Victoria and Finch together? What, it's just, I was afraid of disappointing readers and all. So.
Yeah, and that's huge. I think, like the idea that we get as attached to fictional characters as we do to real people sometimes, and then you have people with expectations of who they want this person that they've become very, very close to end up with, or the story that they want to be told and stuff. It's like there's a lot of expectations.
Yes. Well, I know that in my Dukes of Distinction series, I had planned for the hero in book 4, John had a sister named Elizabeth. She was going to be the heroine in book 5 until this Hadley chick came knocking in my head going, no, I'm for Sebastian, no, kind of thing. And so poor Elizabeth, I just kind of did slide her to the side. And I have gotten so many emails. Are you going to do Elizabeth's story? Are you going to do Elizabeth's story? And that series was already closed. So I am happy to announce, like Jillian's doing the Halloween, I'm doing the summer Dukes that Dragonblade is.
Oh, then get your Duke on.
And so Elizabeth
Oh, that would
really
look like
get
so much
her
fun.
happiness there. Yeah. Oh, it was nice to go back and revisit those friends and that world, because Elizabeth had become friends with the previous 4 heroines as they married, because it was the Dukes that were all friends going into it. So as each of them brought a wife in, Elizabeth was kind of the little sister, the pet for all of them. And so she became friends. And then all of a sudden I just left her hanging out in the cold. So it was very satisfying. And I hope readers will be happy that she gets her story this coming summer. And it's the first time I've told anybody anything. I've just kind of hinted that, oh, it's a previous character. So everybody knows now, Elizabeth,
This is why people need to watch these videos. You never know what you're gonna learn.
Exactly. Yes. There's that nugget. And I may not drop it again for another 3 months. So you people that are watching right now.
All the inside scoop here. So Alexa, I know you just started a new series. Jillian, this is finishing the Perks of Being an Heiress series for you. Is that right?
Yeah.
What are you working on next? What are you excited about?
So I'm giving myself like a little rest, and I'm focusing on the Halloween one, which is actually going to connect back to Perks, the hero from that book. And I also have not announced this yet, up until now, is going to be a brother of Lachlan from book number 3, Seduced by the Scot. I gave him like 5 sexy Scottish brothers, knowing that I would be able to tie them back in other places. So it's not going to technically be part of this series, really. It's 100% going to be its own standalone. But if you had read the Perks of Being an Heiress series, you'd be like, oh yeah, like I hopefully remember that name. And then he and his bride to be will have their own little novella. So I'm gonna work on that. And then I don't know. I have to come up with something else, kind of similar to Alexa. Originally, Perks of Being an Heiress was supposed to be 3 sisters. And Claire, the 3rd sister, I just left her in America. and met Rosemary instead. So Rosemary got her own book, and then met Bryn along the way, who's the heroine for Lachlan and Seduced by the Scot. Mm-hmm. And so Claire's just kind of chilling in Boston. And I have had quite a few people ask me what's going on with her, and who even email me suggestions of who she should end up with from other male characters.
Those sexy Scottish brothers, right?
I know. Actually, a reader on my release day takeover of the Dragonblade readers page yesterday, a reader suggested someone, I won't say who it is, but who was in the Wooed by the Wallflower, who I never even would have thought of. And I was like, that is actually a very good idea. I may pursue this, and like maybe I'll list her in the dedication or something for inspiring the book. But
Mary, what are you up to next?
I've still got one in the Pleasure Garden series, and then I've got the spin-off Gentlemen of Pleasure series. And a couple of novellas as well. I'm doing Get Your Duke On, and also the Halloween story. So I'm going to be
both anthologies.
Yes,
awesome.
Wow.
I can't say no. I keep saying yes to everything, and I'm demented for the rest of the year.
So you're going to have to start dictating when you walk in the morning.
Yeah, but I can't, because I want to see what the dog does. Then I have to take the dog out every morning. So I don't know what he's up to.
Ladies, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. This was a joy as always. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, and I appreciate you letting us in a little bit to know a little bit about your lives. That's always exciting for me. So I will make sure I pop the links to all of the books in the comments, so that if you haven't gotten them yet, you can, and you can go journey with the Second Sons. You can learn about pet squirrels, which I really would like to do.
Yes.
And take a walk on the wild side in the Pleasure Garden. So I'll make sure that the links are accessible for everybody. You want to grab the books release week. That's the pre-order and release day are the very best prices for Dragonblade books. They are it's such a good value. You know exactly what you're getting from Dragonblade. We will give you a good story, a happily ever after, and a really good time. So it's definitely the right time to pick up the books. Ladies, thank you so much again. I really appreciate it. For everyone else, we'll be back here at the same time, same place next week. So
Awesome.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.